Dozens killed in Ukraine just ahead of a peace summit with the leaders of Ukraine, France, Germany, and Russia. 3 Muslim students are dead after being shot at a residential complex of the University of North Carolina. A 46-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of 3 counts of first-degree murder.
In my heart, I know
and Jon Stewart has announced that he's stepping down as host of The Daily Show.
Hi, and welcome to Humber News. I'm Trisha Chan, coming to you from our newsroom here at Humber College North Campus. Fighting in Ukraine may be closer to ending today. A 4-way summit is being held in Minsk with leaders from Ukraine, Russia, France, and Germany. Ukraine's president says he insists on an unconditional ceasefire, but he'll introduce martial law if the fighting continues. He visited a city in Ukraine yesterday hit by rockets which killed 7 people and wounded 36 others. Poroshenko says the fighting has gone too far.
This is a crime against humanity.
Were killed in Donetsk yesterday when a shell hit a bus station in the rebel-controlled city. A 46-year-old man has appeared in court to face 3 counts of first-degree murder. Craig Hicks appeared in court this morning after 3 people were fatally shot yesterday in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Police have offered no motive for the killings. However, a spokesman for the Council on American-Islamic Relations says all 3 victims were Muslim. A Facebook page appearing to belong to Hicks has posted frequent messages critical of various religious views. Since the shooting, the hashtag Muslim Lives Matter and Chapel Hill shooting have been trending on Twitter. A sad day in the satirical news world as Daily Show host Jon Stewart announced he would be leaving the Comedy Central hit. Heralded as the most trusted man in America, Stewart is known for dissecting mainstream media's coverage of events. The Daily Show has scored interviews with prominent guests other major networks have failed to get. The most notable was U.S. President Barack Obama.
I would say even you would admit it was not the optimal response, at least to the American people, as far as us all being on the same page.
Well, here's what I'll say.
Yeah.
The Daily Show has won 18 Emmy and 2 Peabody Awards. Stewart thanked Comedy Central and says it's been the honor of his professional life to host the show.
17 years is the longest I have ever in my life held a job by 16 years and 5 months.
Stewart says he's looking forward to eating dinner with his family on school nights. The news about Stewart has taken everyone by surprise. Reporter Abita Donji hit the halls to find out what you think about the end of the Stewart era.
I think it's a real sad loss to satirical news in general, just because he's one of the best at what he does. And also his views on American politics is very liberal, whereas most Americans are very conservative. So he brings a new light into the news agency. So it's like, say, like the NRA and like gun control. He's very pro human rights and whatnot. So he's very, I think he pushes America in the right direction rather than staying behind in the conservative times.
I think it's going to be a tough break for that show. I know that show was there before he was the host of it, but he was like a great on-air talent, I think, for the show, and so I think he'll be greatly missed.
I think it's a little eerie to me because he's been doing it for so long, and he's always put a different and enthusiastic type of spin on what's been going on in the news, like with the Ferguson stuff that's been happening, the Mike Brown, all that stuff that's happened. He's always put a different perspective on things. So I think the fact that he's leaving, it's like, now who do we turn to for that?
Sad to have him go because a generation is going to lose the critical thinking about news and about media and about what you're being presented with. So it is sad. But that being said, he's had a wicked run. I've enjoyed all the years he's had. It's been great. His thank you last night to the crowd and everything, even though he's done in the fall. It was heartfelt. You could tell he was sad to leave, and he's been on the show for nearly 20 years. And it's just, it's just one more comedy / political pundit / thinker, if you will, gone off our TV. It's kind of sad.
Now to another trusted name in the news, Brian Williams. The NBC Nightly News anchor has been suspended without pay for 6 months after a story he repeatedly reported turned out to be false. Williams apologized for misreporting and misleading viewers about his experiences during the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003. His reporting on other significant events like Hurricane Katrina are now being called into question, as well as his credibility as a journalist. The network's Tuesday broadcast had a new face greeting viewers as Lester Holt took over the show for Williams and addressed his absence.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
Good evening, I'm Lester Holt in for Brian. We're glad you're here. It is the winter of Brian told us he's taking several days off.
Williams has been the host of Nightly News since 2004.
Certain stories he covered in it.
Meanwhile, here at home, the future of journalism may be in question, but there's some good news too. Our reporter Celia Grimbley has the story.
The university's School of Journalism hosted a panel discussion Tuesday night on the precarious state of investigative TV journalism. CBC's Anna Maria Tremonti moderated the discussion between Fifth Estate's Gillian Finley, Frontline's David Fanning, and Patrick McGuire, who heads content at Vice. Journalism students and recent graduates got a chance to speak with the panelists and say the event was informative.
Yeah, so it was so interesting to see, like, from radio to TV to social media, just how it's all evolving, and it's really interesting to, keep up to date with that. I thought it was great to hear their perspective.
I think I go away with a mixture of like inspiration and depression. I think if you want to make it in journalism now, you have to hustle in ways that people didn't have to maybe 20 years ago.
Finley says she was most intrigued by Patrick McGuire from Vice.
Obviously, they are much more cutting edge in terms of technology and perhaps different ways to tell stories, but it was really heartened to hear him talk about similar values in why we tell stories and how we tell them and why they're important.
Regardless of the future of investigative journalism, Tremonti says the quest for the truth is age-old and the industry will persevere. Celia Grimbley, Humber News.
2 people who may have the Ebola virus are now in isolation at Victoria Hospital in London, Ontario. Officials say they were put into a negative pressure room last night. The hospital says they were not admitted through the emergency room and that all safety precautions are in place. The names and ages of the 2 people have not been released. And in Quebec, officials in Joliet have confirmed an outbreak of 10 cases of measles linked to Disneyland in California. The infected people were not vaccinated. They all know each other and live in the same area. Overseas now, more than 300 migrants are feared dead after an attempt to reach Italy from Libya. 4 separate boats left in stormy weather from Tripoli on Saturday. Frigid temperatures and waves as high as 8 meters left the migrants drowning at sea. The United Nations says an Italian boat has just rescued just 9 people. Survivors say another boat carrying 100 people is still missing. And now to Mexico, where protesters have poured onto the streets of the capital after teachers failed to get paid on time. The teachers shut down traffic in Mexico City's main thoroughfare. The protest is causing huge traffic delays. Union officials are defying government demands to leave the streets despite threats that their salaries will be cut off. Humber Sustainability is asking students to recycle old electronics and close for its first ever EWaste Drive. Humber News sent reporter Adam Stroud to the drive to bring you all the info.
Are your old electronics weighing you down? Come let it go in the North Campus Concourse. Humber is working with the Ontario Electronics Stewardship so you can properly get rid of your old clothes and electronics. Amanda Shaw says most people don't consider the environmental impact of throwing away their gadgets.
A lot of clothing and abused e-waste isn't recycled properly, so we wanted to host this event in partnership with OES, the Ontario Electronics Stewardship, and so that it gets sent to the proper facility instead of going to landfills and not being disposed of properly, because it's really like hazardous to like our earth and everything. So.
The electronics will be collected, inspected, separated, and smelted. The clothes will be going to the Ontario Federation for Cerebral Palsy. This is the first e-waste and used clothing drive on campus, but Shaw says she hopes it becomes a regular feature of campus life. If you miss the drive, you can still dump your unwanted electronics by going to recycleyourelectronics.ca. Adam Stroud, Humber News.
When we come back, we'll tell you what's happening in the world of sports, and Christina Succi will have your 3-day forecast.
Thanks, Trisha. It's currently -4, but it feels like -10 with the wind chill. I'll have all that and your full 3-day forecast coming up after the break.
Thanks, Christina. We'll have all your sports, the 3-day forecast, and a rare glimpse into North Korea coming up after the break.